Hello, my name is Cindy Benson, and this video is a response to a question that was asked within my online course, From Novice to Experts, How to Nurture and Train Livestock Guardian Dogs. The question has to do with my belief that it's a little bit risky to feed livestock guardian dogs in a building. The question says, I know you mentioned not to feed inside a building since the dogs may start guarding that area from livestock. You also mentioned trying to feed the same time each day to be consistent. Does that mean you feed out in the weather? It can rain here a lot in western Washington in the winter. Some days the dogs don't mind the rain, and some days I don't see them out of the barn for most days. So with everything to do with behavior and dogs comes an element of practicality. We don't live in a perfect world. It makes sense to know where the risks are and then look at your logistics and including your weather and just all the situation, and then make a broad decision about what you think is the safest, most practical way for you to manage your dogs. Given that the reason that I'm concerned about feeding dogs indoors is this. I'm going to use an analogy that is helpful to me. Picture a funnel, and at the very top of the funnel is broad experiences for the dogs that they enjoy. And then picture all the way down to the funnel, which is a narrow spot, and picture a lot of reinforcement history in that one narrow spot. That means that that one narrow spot has a lot of value to a dog. If that one spot is outdoors and livestock can come and go and move all around the dog, it's less defensible for the dog, and it also may be less of a target for the dog. It may be a more generalized area instead of a specific area. Feeding inside of a building is very defensible for dogs, and some dogs really will do that and some don't, and that may depend on the way they've been trained or just the character of the dogs in general. And so with any of this that I'm teaching in the course, it makes sense to look at kind of what I have to say about things and then go out and look at your own dogs and your own life and your own logistical situation and experiment with it. And if you find that you can do things that worry me in general in the way that I teach this course, then you get to do them. If you don't have any problems with it, that's great. And you can teach dogs to do all kinds of things to be adaptive. Can have to do with how much time you're willing to spend with your dogs. Problems that develop with dogs can have a lot to do with the skills, observational skills that an owner has and the amount of time that they are watching their dogs. Catching a behavior when it's just a tiny piece of a thought in a dog's brain is very easy, much easier to change, very different to change than a dog that all of a sudden is growling and barking at animals that are trying to come in the barn. That's too late. And most people don't spend the time or aren't great observers. I work with a lot of people who miss the early stuff, and part of the reason that this course exists is to try to help people take it down into tiny building blocks and be able to see the smaller pieces. So this photo is a photo of the interior of one of my barns, and that's a whole pile of about 10 or 12-week-old Maramba puppies. This barn, I designed this barn. It's got a lot of openness to it. The dogs can see through everything. Part of the reason I did that is so that I can have livestock on the other side of the fence there, and puppies can be safe but also be bonding with livestock. This particular stall has an opening that you can see in the photo, and then an opening back to the far right corner that you can't see. If I feed dogs inside this stall and there are livestock in there, the livestock can come in or out of the stall two different places. So it's a better kind of a place to feed a dog indoors if I'm going to do it, because a dog can't corner the livestock as easily in a situation like this as they can in a stall with one opening. A stall with one opening is a real setup to be a problem with dogs if the livestock is common to that area, but not necessarily if they aren't. So you can feed inside a building that doesn't have livestock coming into that particular area without a problem in most cases. Some dogs will generalize farther than that, and they'll decide that even outside that particular building matters. But they don't all do that. I don't own currently on my ranch, out of 30 dogs, I don't own any pair of dogs that I can feed inside a building that won't then take it, notch it up a step, and give an evil look to livestock that are going to walk in the building after they've been fed in there. I can feed puppies this way, as you can see. And puppies may be up to 6 to 8 months old, basically up to the point where they start looking like they want to defend something. I am very careful in my feeding protocol with my dogs, as you've seen in the course. So I create a lot of safety for them. They know that if food is set down, nobody's going to be able to get to it. So they know that even if there are livestock around, I'm not going to let the livestock bother them. So they're a little bit less likely to guard areas. So if, because of the weather, because of logistics, whatever, if it makes sense in your life with your dogs to feed indoors, feed indoors. But be mindful of the risks and the considerations. You may be able to figure out ways to tweak it a little bit so that there's less risk and still have the practicality that you're looking for. One of the kind of adaptations that I have done is to create outside shelters for dogs to eat in. One of my favorite ways to do that is to take a hog panel, which is the squares that you see there, that's framed with wood, but that's a 16-foot hog panel. If I create an arch with that, so that create an arch and put a tarp over it, there's an entrance and an exit. It's not defensible really because it doesn't have a door. So I can set up something like that, or two of them, and put a dog bowl under that and let the dogs eat under that shelter, and then pick the bowls up and take them away. That creates less of an intensified resource area with that than there would be inside this building. If I remove the bowl, dogs will often sleep in the shade in those places, allow livestock to sleep in the shade. Another thing that I've done to be able to feed dogs in a sheltered situation and not have them be in a building, I have platforms that I've built for my dogs. They're 4 by 8 and they're 30 inches high or so. Dogs like to sleep up on top of them and under them. Livestock likes to sleep under them. I can put a bowl under one of those platforms and let a dog eat there and then take the bowl away again. So I live in a fairly temperate area. I don't have to, it's not excuse me. It doesn't rain as much here as it does in Washington. It doesn't snow and freeze as much here as it does for my friend in Canada. So I have an easier situation to deal with. But those are kind of things that you can consider to make adaptations. Once a dog decides that they're going to guard a barn, it can be really tricky to teach them not to guard the barn. In my early days with livestock guardian dogs, I had 2 6-month-old dogs that were doing beautifully with my mini donkey herd, and that was tricky because the mini donkeys had history with border collies that chased them, so they weren't very accepting of these dogs. The dogs had a tough job there for a while. Anyway, about 6 months old, and I remember looking at them, and have a spacious barn. It's big. And it was raining and pouring and horrible outside, and I thought, this is just ridiculous. And so I took one small corner of that barn, I bedded it for the dogs, I put their dog bowls in there, they went in and they ate, I went in the house, everything's fine. I look out the next morning, both dogs are sleeping in the doorway of the barn, and this is a 12-foot wide doorway, 2 of them, with their little paws crossed and looking serene, and a half circle outside the building was my whole donkey herd standing in the rain. They hate rain. They would not walk in past the dogs, and the dogs were not growling at them, barking at them, any of that. They were just given a steely-eyed look that was trying, aimed to back them off. It took me 2 weeks to talk those dogs out of that, and I would go out there with alfalfa, which is like feeding cheesecake to a human, and sprinkle it around in the doorway of the barn every time the donkey would come in to eat alfalfa. I would tell the dog how wonderful he is and cuddle the dog, and so it became a love fest. If the doggies came in to eat hay, the dogs got cuddled. And I did that 3 times a day for 2 weeks, I think. And the donkeys figured out that the dogs wouldn't actually hurt them, and the dogs figured out that they could share that space again. But it was a big lesson to me because it took an awful lot of work to fix that situation, and it would have been easier if I'd come up with one of my quicker fixes, like the half circle tarp covered thing or feeding under a platform. So I offer that for your consideration. Check it out. If you have more questions, let me know. The course is rich with this kind of information, practical information about how to live successfully with livestock guardian dogs, and I hope that this video has been helpful to you. Thank you very much.